President Obama meets with Pope Benedict XVI at the Vatican this morning. On Tuesday, the Pope called for a new era of economic justice. And that agenda covers issues close to Obama's heart, such as financial services regulation and greater access to health care.
The mystic parasites who have, throughout the ages, reviled the traders and held them in contempt, while honoring the beggars and the looters, have known the secret motive of their sneers. A trader is the entity they dread, a man of justice.
When there are tens of millions of people who cannot afford or get access to health care, we have a moral duty to pass health care reform, and we need to pass it this year.
They call this socialistic. You know, I don't know when they decided that they wanted to make a virtue out of selfishness.
They call it a morality of mercy and a doctrine of love for man. The good, say the mystics of spirit, is God, a being whose only definition is that he is beyond man's power to conceive. The good, say the mystics of muscle, is society, a thing which they define as an organism that possesses no physical form, a super being, embodied in no one in particular, and everyone in general, except yourself. Man's mind, say the mystics of spirit, must be subordinated to the will of God. Man's mind, say the mystics of muscle, must be subordinated to the will of society. Selfishness, say both, is man's evil. Man's good, say both, is to give up his personal desires, to deny himself, renounce himself, surrender. Sacrifice, cry both, is the essence of morality, the highest virtue within man's reach. Whoever is now within reach of my voice, whoever is man the victim, not man the killer, I am speaking at the deathbed of your mind, at the brink of that darkness in which you're drowning. And if there still remains within you the power to struggle to hold on to those fading sparks which had been yourself, use it now. The word that has destroyed you is sacrifice. Use the last of your strength to understand its meaning. You're still alive. You have a chance.
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
And sacrifice. So what sacrifice is left?
Sacrifice! 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 Sacrifice!
Sacrifice now, sacrifice tomorrow, sacrifice forever.
If that's the kind of sacrifice people are talking about, I'm not for it.
Take now thy son, thy only son, Isaac, whom thou lovest, and go into the mountains and offer him there for a burnt offering.
Sacrifice does not mean the rejection of the worthless, but of the precious. Sacrifice is the surrender of that which you value in favor of that which you don't. If you exchange a penny for $1, it is not a sacrifice. If you exchange $1 for a penny, it is. If you achieve the career you wanted after years of struggle, it is not a sacrifice. If you then renounce it for the sake of a rival, it is. If you own a bottle of milk and give it to your starving child, it is not a sacrifice. If you give it to your neighbor's child and let your own die, it is. If you give money to help a friend, it is not a sacrifice. If you give it to a worthless stranger, it is. If you give your friend the sum you can afford, it is not a sacrifice. If you give him money at the cost of disaster to yourself, that is the virtue of sacrifice in full. If you renounce all personal desires and dedicate your life to those you love, you do not achieve full virtue. You still retain a value of your own, which is your love. If you devote your life to random strangers, it is an act of greater virtue. If you devote your life to serving men you hate,
love your enemies.
That is the greatest of the virtues you can practice. If a mother buys food for her hungry child rather than a hat for herself, it is not a sacrifice. She values the child higher than the hat. But it is a sacrifice to the kind of mother whose higher value is the hat, who would prefer her child to starve and feeds him only from a sense of duty. If a man dies fighting for his own freedom, it is not a sacrifice. He is not willing to live as a slave. But it is a sacrifice to the kind of man who's willing. A sacrifice is the surrender of a value. Full sacrifice is full surrender of all values. If you wish to achieve full virtue, you must seek no gratitude in return for your sacrifice, no praise, no love, no admiration, no self-esteem, not even the pride of being virtuous. The faintest trace of any gain dilutes your virtue. If you pursue a course of action that does not taint your life by any joy, that brings you no value in matter, no value in spirit, no gain, no profit, no reward, if you achieve this state of total zero, you have achieved the ideal of moral perfection. You are told that moral perfection is impossible to man, and by this standard it is. You cannot achieve it so long as you live, but the value of your life and of your person is gauged by how closely you succeed in approaching that ideal zero, which is death. If you start, however, as a passionless blank, as a vegetable seeking to be eaten with no values to reject and no wishes to renounce, you will not win the crown of sacrifice. It is not a sacrifice to renounce the unwanted. It is not a sacrifice to give your life for others if death is your personal desire. To achieve the virtue of sacrifice, you must want to live, you must love it. You must burn with passion for this earth and for all the splendor it can give you. You must feel the twist of every knife as it slashes your desires away from your reach and drains your love out of your body. It is not mere death that the morality of sacrifice holds out to you as an ideal, but death by slow torture. If you wish to save the last of your dignity, do not call your best actions a sacrifice. That term brands you as immoral.